Morning, everybody. Good morning, everybody. Barida. Good morning. My name is Kerry Williams, Deputy Monitoring Officer for Conway County Borough Council. Can I welcome everyone to the meeting, which is a multi-location meeting. The meeting will be live streamed and recorded and will be available for viewing after the meeting. Should the live stream fail, the meeting will continue and a recording will be available through the Council's website following the conclusion of the meeting. Can I remind members that the translation facilities are available if you want to make use of this facility. Please select the English language option on the microphone delegate unit. If you're in the Council chamber, and for those attending remotely, by clicking on the Audio Settings tab and selecting English. For those of you wanting to speak in the chamber, please indicate this by raising your hand and turn on your microphone when it is your turn to speak. For those of you who are online, they will be able to hear the translation at all times. For those remote attendees wishing to speak, please use the yellow hand function. When I call your name to speak, please press the push to speak button. If you have a point of order, you may press the push to speak button. Committee members will be allowed to have their say first, and the relevant cabinet member will be brought in as and when appropriate, with non-committee members then given the opportunity to speak. In order to maintain your place in the speaker queue when asking a question, please leave your microphone on until you have received a response and asked any supplementary questions. It would be helpful if members could ask all the questions in one go. Whilst we do not wish to stifle debate, can I remind members that any questions should be focused on the subject matter and to avoid repetition. For those attending remotely, please note that those in the chamber will be unable to use the chat facility. I think I've said that twice, so hopefully everybody got that message. Remote attendees, if you wish to leave the meeting temporarily, please pop a message in the chat function. We expect everyone present and participating in the meeting to conduct themselves appropriately and be respectful to each other, and that applies to members, officers and members of the press or public who are attending. We'll now move to the agenda for the meeting today, and the first item on the agenda is the appointment of a chair. Can I ask for a proposer, please? Councillor Nigel.
Barida, being mindful that Scotland's been recently kicked out of the football competition overseas, I feel we need somebody with the same talent that you probably find as a manager of Scotland before he applies for that particular vacancy. So on the basis that he'll have plenty of time on his hands now, I'd like to nominate Ian White to resume his tenure of the chair of the GAC, please.
Okay, do we have a seconder? Thank you. Are there any other nominations? Okay, you can vote with a show of hands. So if we start the vote. Okay, that vote is carried. Congratulations, Ian. Come and join us. You're reappointed to the chair.
Many thanks for your continued support. Certainly look forward to working with you all in in the coming year. Now I think we can move on to the second item on the agenda, which is the appointment of a vice chair. Do we have any nominations, please? Councillor Austin.
Diolch yn fawr.
Good morning.
Diolch yn fawr, bore da. Yn gyntaf ga i eich llongyfarchu ar eich ailethol yn gadeirydd y pwyllgor yma ac hoffwn ni enwebu y cynghorydd Michael Smith fel is-gadeirydd.
Thank you, Councillor Austin. Councillor Andrew?
I'd like to second that, Chair, and congratulations on your reappointment. Both you, Michael, I think are excellent people.
Okay. Are there any more nominations? No. So please can we just vote by a show of hands to confirm? I think that's unanimous. Congratulations, Councillor Michael. Now, can we move on to item 3 on the agenda, which is apologies for absence?
No apologies today, Chair.
No, okay. Very pleased to see you here, Councillor Andrew. I thought you were going to be unavailable. Oh, you're on mute. So item number 4, which is declarations of interest. Does anyone have anything to declare? No. And as far as I'm aware, there are no urgent matters. So moving on to item 6, which is the minutes of our last meeting. These are only presented for accuracy and your confirmation. So do we have a proposer in support of the minutes? Councillor Michael, thank you. And seconder? Councillor Traven, thank you very much. And with a show of hands, can you confirm your support for the minutes? I think that's unanimous. Thank you. So now item 7 on the agenda, which is to review the Governance and Audit Committee Forward Work Programme. Sinead, are you...
Yeah, this is just a forward work programme for the year. In addition to what's there already, I'd just like to bring to your attention that in September I will be bringing the revised counter-fraud strategy in light of the Economic Crime and Corporate Transparency Act. But no further additions. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Does anyone have any comments or queries on the work programme? Councillor Nigel.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Can I just go back to the work programme and the item listed for the 28th September 26, Sinead, which is the G&A Committee Terms of Reference Review. We have discussed in the past the timing of this. I'm just curious as to why we need to bring that in September, particularly as sort of the end of year and the run-up to the AGM is when the terms of reference for committee are confirmed. Is there some event happening that requires that review to be held at that point in time, or can we expect to hold it like we do for every other committee until the end of the municipal year?
I think it was just a matter of timing this year with the embargo and what we could and could not bring to the GAC in May. usually we should bring it to the first meeting in the electoral cycle, but we'll bear that in mind for next time. Thank you.
Are there any more questions, comments? No? So please can I ask for a proposer in support of our work programme? Councillor Michael, thank you. And a seconder, please. Philip, thank you. And please, by a show of hands, can you confirm your support? That's unanimous. Thank you very much. So now we're moving on to item 8 on our agenda, which is the Internal Audit Annual Report for 2025-26. Claire, are you taking this one, please?
Thank you. The Internal Audit Annual Report for 2025-26 Appendix A is submitted in accordance with the Accounts and Audit Wales regulations and the Global Internal Audit Standards in the UK public sector. It supports the Council's annual governance statement and provides the Head of Audit and Procurement Services annual conclusion on governance, risk management and control. The annual report, together with appendices B to F, set out the work undertaken by internal audit during 2025-2026 and reports on the service's performance during the year. This includes the schedule of follow-up audits at Appendix C and the outcome of the second follow-up review of houses in multiple occupation completed in February 2026, where the assurance rating remained limited. The services progress report is included at Appendix G, and Andrew is in attendance to respond to any questions you may have. During 2025-2026, internal audit continued to operate with reduced staffing resources, which inevitably affected delivery of the planned audit programme and the overall number of audits completed. Notwithstanding these capacity challenges, it is encouraging to report that both client satisfaction and the acceptance of audit recommendations remained at 100%. The service also continued to deliver a broad range of risk-based assurance, advisory, follow-up, investigation, grant verification and contract final account work, with available resources carefully prioritised towards those areas presenting the greatest risk and assurance value to the Council. The Head of Audit and Procurement is satisfied that the internal audit work completed during 2025-26, when considered alongside other sources of assurance, provides a sufficient basis for the annual opinion. On this basis, it was concluded that for 25-26, Conwy County Borough Council has reasonable internal control, risk management and corporate governance processes to manage the achievement of the Council's objectives. The committee is asked to consider the report, note the overall conclusion and take assurance from the work undertaken and the continued focus on the areas of greatest risk to the Council. Sinead and I are happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Claire. Are there any observations or questions? Philip.
Thank you, Chair. I'd just like to ask about this, the Highmore report. I just wonder why it's taking so long to come to a conclusion and get the work done that's required.
Can I just clarify, sorry, Phil, is that in terms of HMO or the overall internal audit annual report?
Sorry, just the HMO. From what I can see of the rest of it, you've done a very good job with limited resources, but...
Okay.
I'm happy to take that chair question. Take that question, Chair, was what I meant to say.
Thank you.
I'm Andy Wilkinson, Head of Neighbourhood Services and Housing Enforcement as part of Public Protections. Only recently come into my remit in January, so inherited this this service with a limited assurance audit audit report. So since then, over the last few months, we've been working hard to rectify the actions. You'll see that from the progress report, certainly many of the systems are now in place which weren't in place to be able to monitor inspections, service requests and notices. So that's all in place, and we've already made progress in catching up with the backlog of inspections of newly licensed properties, but also dealing with outstanding notices and also serving new notices. So that number of notices which you saw there, that's sort of keeps rolling on because we do inspections, we find new problems. But we've recently had 2 new properties referred to prosecution, and as some members will be aware, we're taking significant action against 2 particular owners of properties in regards to being fit and proper persons to hold HMO licences, which again have taken a lot of time and a lot of work from the team, but will have a positive impact on we feel on the standard of housing stock that's being let to tenants in Conwy. So we're overall, I'm confident that when we come to the follow-up inspection in October, we will have everything in order and we'll be able to raise that assurance level. Thank you.
Thank you, Andy. And can I just mention that very helpful having the update in writing here to read as part of the report. That was extremely helpful. Councillor Paul, I don't think there are any committee members with any questions. So, Councillor Paul, do you have a question?
Yeah, can I pose 2 questions? I met with yourself and Sinead a few weeks ago, raising a number of concerns, and I was hopeful we would see going forward a deep dive internal audit into legal services, which I think hasn't been undertaken for a number of years. So I would like to ask whether that is on the programme of investigations in the next 12 months. And the second question is, I suspect will be more problematic to people, but I want to ask the question in terms of special investigations. Now, it's not responding this morning by to bring up the detail, but in my reading of this in preparation for the meeting, I noticed we did spend very significant number of days on investigations to data protection issues and cyber security, and those investigations led to dismissal, other disciplinary action, and a resignation, and I think because we have devoted so much time to that, my own view is we need a little bit more information about whose data was being attacked in a sense, and what are the risks going forward. And also, and I'm sure this is difficult for people, but we had the awful unexpected death of a woman in Llandudno, and I see that has been part of special investigations as well. But I'm concerned that the learning from whatever the situation is there, and I understand again people are going to say there's legal privilege, but my concern is that the lessons learnt report and recommendations will be shared with relevant heads of services on conclusion. Well, I think if there's lessons learnt and recommendations, that should also come into the democratic process myself. So I'd be grateful if Sinead or anybody else can shed some light on that.
Okay. Thank you, Councillor Paul.
Thank you, Councillor Paul. I'll take your first point. Legal services audit review is on our annual plan for 2026-27. I understand they're having a new system which won't be in place until December, so it's scheduled to take place January to March 2027, the review.
Okay.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Paul. Both investigations that you referred to are currently still undergoing police investigation, so they are legally privileged at the moment. Action plans have been drawn up for both investigations. I've just consulted with our legal advisors to have approval to let our strategic leadership team have access to one of them so that they can look at the governance and any lessons learnt moving forwards for the authority. Thank you.
Chair, can I come back on that?
Yes, briefly, hopefully.
I understand that, Sinead, and I understand that explanation. But at some point of this process going forward, will more information be disclosed, shared within the democratic process? Because what would be concerned to residents, both with data protection and cybersecurity, is obviously their data. And in terms of the awful incident in Llandudno, people will also want reassurance that the risks around that sort of incident are not likely to go forward. So in terms of democratically reassuring people, we need a bit more information.
Yes, certainly. As I say, it's subject to ongoing police investigations, but I can provide assurance to you that the information access related to an individual and not to the wider population. Thank you. And the fatality, that is still subject to ongoing police and health and safety enforcement investigations. But I'm sure lessons learnt will be shared with this committee in due course. Thank you.
Thank you.
Nigel.
Thank you, Chair. I'm mindful we're in public session. 3 questions for you, please. Probably Sinead in the first one. Only 55% of planned works complete and 151 days lost to sickness. Can you clarify whether that remains an ongoing issue going forward is the first question. Second question is that some local authorities have separate meetings with their external auditors. Do we and have we a process of undertaking those in a positive way with Audit Wales? And the third issue is when special investigations arise, are they always undertaken by internal audit staff, or are they used potentially as a development opportunity for those investigations to be undertaken by other staff out with internal audit? I'm just mindful of the resource implications that special investigations can take in relation to the time and effort required of officers. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Nigel. As to your first point on sickness and capacity, the individual has since resigned, so that's resolved itself. We are interviewing tomorrow for an auditor. We had 9 applicants and we've shortlisted 4, so that's a positive and hopefully it will be resolved soon. We've also had 2 applicants for senior auditor post, which we're currently reviewing subject to the interviews tomorrow, what will happen there. Moving on to your second point, was that regarding meeting with external audit? Yola, myself and Janice meet with external audit on a monthly basis, discuss the work and any reports or any programme of work that they have, so that's on an ongoing basis. And as to special investigations, we don't always undertake the investigation because of the nature of the two that we've undertaken this year, which have been sensitive and quite a lot of work has been involved with them. I myself have undertaken that work, so it hasn't impacted on the department too much. Other departments do undertake investigations with their managers, and we're happy to help whatever. But as you pointed out, we have limited capacity, so we don't take all investigations that happen in the authority. Thank you.
Amanda?
Yeah, just to come in, Nigel, in relation to your question about your ability as the audit committee to meet privately with the external auditors. I don't know if that's routinely programmed in, but certainly we can arrange that, and maybe we can put that in place ahead of the next committee.
Councillor Andrew, you've had a long time to wait. Oh, sorry.
Thank you, Chair.
Sorry, Councillor Andrew, can you just hold on a minute? Charles Rigby from Audit Wales has, I think, wants to respond as well. Morning, Charles. I think we can't hear you, Charles.
If you press your push to speak button, it's... Yeah, there we go.
Apologies. Thanks, Chair. Just to second what Amanda said there, should members wish to have, in some audit bodies, we have a private meeting before an audit committee or after an audit committee once a year. Some audited bodies, I believe, is twice a year. So it's really within the gift of the authority and the committee itself, whether it would like to take Audit Wales up on that offer that I'll make on behalf of Carwyn and his team. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you, Charles. Councillor Andrew, thank you for your patience.
That's okay, Chair. You can hear me clearly?
Yes.
I'd just like to say thank you to Andrew Wilkinson for the assurance. Now it's moved into his portfolio. Can I ask for you, Chair, can we have, as this has been slipping and has been subject of annoyance, I think, to our audit crew, can we have an update in 3 months' time or the next governance and audit meeting to see if everything's on track? It's a very important thing, as we can obviously we can see in the report. So if for you, Chair, we can have an update from Andrew, I think that will be a positive way to look at things. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Andrew. Sinead or Claire, there is a further follow-up, isn't there, in October?
Yeah, further follow-up scheduled in October.
So this is June, July, August, September. Yeah, Councillor Andrew, perhaps if we...
Yeah, happy with that. Sorry, yes, happy with that. But I'm quite assured by Andrew, so if Andrew thinks there's any issues or whatever, I'd like to hear him come back to us and actually mention that. But I will be guided by what audit think to start with. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you. I think just generally, Sinead and Claire, we need to be alert to the fact that there were 14 very significant items raised in these low assurance audits, and there's only 5 implemented. So we really need to be assured that the remaining 9 are being progressed satisfactorily. So, but you have follow-up audits arranged for all 3 audits, yeah?
Yes, we do. And just for the committee to be aware, I am going to look at all major recommendations, look at the process in terms of reporting to the committee, and actually asking managers to provide an update on a 6-monthly basis but I need to find a means to do that first. But that is something that I'm looking to do moving forwards.
Yeah, okay. Thank you. Any more observations or questions? No. So, please can I have a proposal in support of the annual report? Ah, Councillor Andrew, thank you. And a seconder, please. Councillor Austin, thank you very much. And now can we open the electronic vote, please? Turn this one way. Oh, I need to vote, I don't. Yeah. Okay, so thank you very much. That is yeah, it's unanimous. Thank you.
Chair.
Oh, sorry, Nigel.
I've just noticed I'm missing from the list. Is that an issue, or is it me, Chair?
Bear with us.
Oh, here's yeah, David. Were you missing from the list as well?
Yeah, I'm also missing. Yeah.
We won't overlook you guys.
Well, you'll be added for the next one.
But you're both confirming your support, are you? Yes. Yeah. Thank you very much. So it is unanimous. Yeah. Okay, and thank you, Claire and Jonad. So now we can move on to the second item under agenda item 8, which is the annual report of the Governance and Audit Committee Chair's report, which is pages 48 to 71, which I think, Sinead, you were kindly, but before you do that, can I just say I think that the past year has been a little bit tough at times, but I think we have also considered quite a number of important matters and have certainly progressed in terms of our performance and awareness, and that in many ways has been because we've had such support from officers and also elected members, which makes our job that bit easier. So thank you for your contributions. It's also been, I would say, refreshing to have some new membership, and the ladies know who I'm referring to. So it's certainly been refreshing. So over to you, Sinead.
Okay, diolch. Thank you, Chair. SIP for Guidance requires the committee to report regularly to Council and produce an annual public report on its performance. The Chair's annual report 25-26 summarises the committee's work, effectiveness, attendance, training and a self-assessment against best practice with an improvement plan. Can I take you to recommendation on page 48? Members are asked to endorse the Chair's annual report 25-26. Diolch, thank you.
Thank you, Sinead. Does anyone have any? David?
Hi, thank you, Chair. Just a small point. I did attend the self-assessment workshop on page 68 on February 26th. So there's a cross in the table.
Okay, noted, and apologies.
Thank
I'll
you.
get it amended.
All
Thank
right.
you.
Okay. Nigel?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I tried very hard to find any weakness in this particular report. I spent a lot of time reading it carefully, and I was still unable to discover where the deliberate error was. So I'd just like to say well done, Chair and Sinead, for this report, and I commend its acceptance by the committee as a wonderful piece of work and a fair reflection of your period of tenure. And long may it continue, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Nigel. So can I take that as a proposer in support of the report?
I'm happy to propose on this occasion, Chair.
Okay. Oh, Councillor Stephen.
Thank you, Chair. Can I first congratulate yourself and Councillor Michael on the re-election to Chair and Vice Chair. And I was going to propose this report, but Nigel's got there before me, so I'm happy to second. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Councillor Stephen. So again, it's an electronic... oh, sorry. Councillor Sam. Oh, sorry, we can't... We're not able to hear you.
Oh, there we go. Yeah. Yeah, we can hear you now.
You can hear me now?
Yeah.
Yes, sorry. Just to clarify, I've got it in my diary that I attended the self-assessment workshop as well in February, the 9th of February. I don't appear to be on the list.
Okay, noted. I'll amend the report. Thank you.
Sorry about that. We will rectify. Okay, so it's an electronic vote. So please, can you open the vote, please? So it's and me.
We just asked to close the vote.
Yeah. Oh, can you close the vote now, please? And that's unanimous. Thank you. Thank you very much. And everyone's on there now. Yes. Thank you. So now we can move on to item 9. Which is the performance self-assessment report, October 25 to March 26. And Yulo, you're taking this one, please.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning. Before I start, I'd like to give my thanks to Rachel Brooks in my team and also the wider team for the support they've given to help collate this report. I'm sure members will agree it is a mammoth of a report. The purpose for bringing it here to Governance and Audit is obviously to give you assurance that we are fulfilling the requirements in terms of our self-assessment process. And we've done a lot of work, again, I think, to just make small improvements to the report. We've introduced on page 82 of your packs now an at-a-glance dashboard to give a very high level of performance, and this was actually a recommendation from the panel performance assessment that we had in December, so we're starting to implement their suggestion there. It's very much a first attempt. I expect it will evolve and change as we need it to with the needs of the organisation, but the dashboard is currently structured around the 5 priorities, but with a particular focus, I think, on resilience, financial resilience. We've also introduced new stakeholder survey data. Members will be aware that last autumn we ran our stakeholder engagement survey with the public, inviting businesses, town and community councils, partners, staff, residents to give their views on how we're performing against our functions. So finally, we're able to bring that data into this report, completing really the sort of the triangle that you should be looking at for your self-assessment. the other two sides being obviously your own data and regulatory information as well. So I'm pleased that the triangle has finally been closed with this report. We've also introduced ROIG colours, 4 RAG colours, as it were, red, orange, yellow, green, now for our measures. We've not yet been able to roll that out for our activity. There needs to be some further development work done with our performance software before we can do that, but it's in the pipeline. There are a great many positives, I feel, in the report. You know, there's a lot of highlights. I'm not going to go through them all. But, you know, completion of flood defence works, completion of regeneration projects, work to support our youth and employment, work to meet the needs of children and vulnerable adults in our care. And housing as well, I feel, is coming out as a real positive in this report. Again, we're seeing an improving picture there. And I know the head of service was really wanting to put forward some data around new builds that have been completed, but we're not yet able to bring that forward until it's been validated. But I understand it's, again, a very positive picture. Just 2 little words of warning with interpreting the data. The tables use, again, this is described in the guide to performance management that is at the front of the second appendix, but the tables have some cumulative measures in there. So I would just urge members to be careful when looking at the trend information. They are comparing like for like. So where it has been highlighted as a cumulative measure, we would obviously be comparing with the same period last year, not 6 months ago. And then also for the stakeholder survey measures that we've introduced, a slightly mind-bending approach to how we've presented the data, but there is a logic to the madness. The measures are presenting the percentage of stakeholders who agree with our statement, whatever it might be, but the targets we've set are against those who disagree. So the logic being that we don't want, ideally, any more than 50% of our population thinking we've done a bad job. So anything below 50% would be a red, essentially. So where you perhaps see an orange, you can determine, well, there's probably about between 33 and 50% who do agree with us, or sorry, who agree with us. So that's why the orange status has been given. So we haven't gone over that 50%. The reason for this is because we've, in any measure within the stakeholder survey, you've got essentially 3 bits of data: those who agree, those who disagree, and those who didn't answer the question. So the way we've presented it is actually a way of presenting at least 2 bits of information at the same time. So I'm sorry, it might be a bit confusing, but I think hopefully it'll come with practice. Otherwise, I'm happy to take questions, Chair.
Thank you, Iolo. Nigel.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Iolo. Again, what I thought was an excellent report. Can I just get you to expand a little on, I think the page 82 works pretty well, even if it's an early model of what the PPA recommendation was. How are you using benchmarks, whether Welsh or national, in terms of trying to set the trends on some of the data? Can you expand on that? And secondly, what do you think is the most difficult challenge for you in undertaking this type of report?
Thank you, Nigel. So yes, in terms of benchmarking, again, I think I've included a sort of explanatory note on this within the guide at the start of Appendix 2. Where we can get benchmarking data, it is absolutely our practice that we will. So in the spring of each year, my team supports services with their service planning. And during that, we will identify relevant measures that support not just the services priorities, but our corporate plan. And we will usually have a conversation at that point around, right, what's the data telling us? Can we get national data for this? Can we compare? Now, it might not be appropriate, obviously, to use a national group. You might want to look at a family group. So roads, for example, is a good one. So rather than looking at national trends for roads, you'd actually be better looking at a similar rural county with a similar rural network. So there's no straight answer to how we benchmark. It needs to be done appropriately, and in some cases, unfortunately, the national data is just not good. But there is a very rigorous process behind all of this, and I think with these reports, we're bringing more and more each time, actually. In terms of my biggest challenge, I have to say it's data timeliness. It is a big task for us to get all the data that we need on time for the committee deadlines. Sally, I think, will be cursing my name, but there's always a next version, it seems. You know, somebody, oh, I've got this data now for you. So that's my biggest challenge. But I have to say, the mechanism is working well here. This has been this is our strongest report yet.
Chair, can I ask just a supplementary?
Absolutely, yes.
Yolo, have we got enough automatic robotic systems in place to enable basic data collection to ease the burden of human resource on here?
We do have, obviously, systems. Not a great many automated systems. I think that is an area that we need to be improving on. And I think that there's a piece of work currently being undertaken by the Head of Innovation and Transformation to query exactly this. Where can automation help more? I think there's also issues with performance management systems. I think there could be better systems now. The systems that we've got at the moment were purchased a few years ago. I think technology has changed terrifically, obviously, with AI in the last couple of years. So it would be timely for us in the next few years as contracts end to obviously look to, well, what can AI do for us better?
Excuse me. Do we have any more questions, observations? I just have one question. I mean, it's a very, very detailed report and extremely helpful to help the committee be assured around progress. And I only mention this because we've had an interest in the subject of projects and program management for several years now. I'm not sure what members of the committee think of this, but at some point, I think it would be helpful to have Emma pop along and give us an update, because I know that the process was being changed. I think they've faced some resourcing challenges as well. I do appreciate from the report that there's been some health checks to be carried out in May. But I think it would be helpful to for the committee to have an update, even if it's YOLO.
Yes, following our pre-meet, I did query with Emma where we were with those health checks. She's confirmed that one of them has started, and the two remaining will be complete by July. And she is awaiting the committee's call at any time.
Okay, so with the committee's agreement, I think it would be an idea to just have an update from Emma on how the new process has been going and the outcome of the health checks. Councillor Susan.
Thank you, Chair. Just a quick question on page 156 regarding the new staff and the safeguarding training. It's 53.3%. I was just wondering if there's been an update on that or if it's improved by any chance. Diolch.
Thank you, Councillor. This measure continues to be a problematic measure in terms of capturing an accurate picture. I think when we read this, we should take it as a sample in its current guise. However, there is a process starting, I believe, to introduce a new training platform. Thinky, I believe. So we are hoping sincerely with that it will significantly tighten up the data that we are capturing around this. And again, I must stress that the message to new staff continues to be that you must complete this training.
Diolch,
Councillor Michael.
Thank you. This is for Yola. So thank you for the report. And it's always very difficult when we're looking at statistics, percentages, and Ian's alluded to the data pools which he used, which he said there isn't a standard set of those, as well as the quality of those measures. So when we're looking to report this information, my assumption is we're reporting on, just for example, on staff sickness as a whole of the staff sickness within Conwy. Do we, is that factually true? Do we report on the whole, or do we, for example, at school governors, we report as a whole, but then we have outliers of like a truant child or a child who's absent frequently? You know, if we take them outliers out of the data set, does that then change the ratings, and does that put us more favourable or less favourable when we were able to do that? You know, reporting data is very difficult, and we want to be the most transparent, but you know, at some point, if you look at specific outliers, so one sick day for one staff member versus a staff member who is long-term sick, will affect the data dramatically. Just to give us a flavour of how that looks, and that was just an easy one to go at. But you know, if we look at council tax collections, you know, one person that's never paid versus a few people that miss the odd month, you know, it will potentially change all of these ratings if we look at the outliers.
Thank you, Councillor. Yes, so actually there's some really good national data now published around the sickness absence example you give, and I was looking at that on the end of last week. The breakdown that you get does break it down by short-term absences and long-term absences, so you can see that difference. So the picture we are presenting here is obviously the whole picture. We don't want to be accused of manipulating the data in any way, do we? So yes, this is the whole, and likewise with council tax, we would be putting forward the whole picture. But I know, for example, there are multiple cycles where we would be trying to claim back that tax. So those who have failed to pay the first time, there are multiple attempts further down the line. So the data's changing throughout the year, really, you know.
No, thank you for that.
Philip.
Thank you, Chair. I read this with interest. I couldn't see any explanation in the first report or the first appendix, the definition of measures and actions. And I just wondered if this is available to members of the public to have a look at. They might not realise what those are, and whether you know, it says the first one I'm looking at is resilient council, measures satisfactory, actions on track. Without the explanation of what measures and actions are, how do they assess our performance? I wonder if you...
Thank you. So I guess it might be a problem in terms of the order that you would read the papers. Naturally, people would perhaps read the summary first and then the detail is in Appendix 2. So, you know, as I've said, that there is the full guide for the measures and everything. And I try strongly to resist putting too much in the summary, because then it's no longer a summary. But nonetheless, I take your comment on board. I'll go away and look at that and see if there is some way of referencing.
Sorry if I can come back. I couldn't really see an explanation in the second appendix either. So it still left me wondering what your measures were and what an action was. So I was a bit confused. Well, perhaps it's me, but I was a bit confused.
So sorry, the quick guide that I keep referring to is early on in the report. It follows the contents page of the second appendices. So it's page 97 of your packs.
Oh, right.
And that gives a full detailed explanation of what an outcome is, an indicator, performance measure, and
All right.
activity.
Right. Yep, that's right. Yep, got that. Thanks.
So do we have any more questions for Yolo? Comments? Okay. Can I just, on behalf of the committee, Yolo, thank you and everyone else who's had to contribute to this report. Thank you for your efforts and the helpfulness of the report. And now we need to move towards a vote. But first of all, can I ask for a proposer in support of this? Councillor Michael, thank you. And
Chair, before we go to a vote, can I just, coming in late with a question?
Okay, sorry.
Page 82, the council tax collection, I know is 95.6%. Given the customary very, very, very low settlement that we get from Cardiff, and I suspect there'll be no change this year, how does that affect our financial resilience if we're only reaching 95.6?
Thank you, Councillor Stephen. So the 95.6 is the in-year collection. So obviously the outstanding council tax owed will continue to be pursued and hopefully recovered in due course. From a budgetary point of view, we base the budget on an assumption of 98% collection. So that ultimately, as I say, if we've had an in-year of 95.7 or whatever, that we will then ultimately collect 98% in every year. I don't have the figures to hand, but my understanding is that we do ultimately achieve that 98%. But obviously there is no doubt, and it's a picture across Wales, that the in-year collection is ever so slightly starting to decrease, and that, as I say, is a position across Wales. So whether in the future we will start to have problems around achieving that 98% ultimate collection or not, I don't know. Time will tell. But historically we've been fine. But I think there's no doubt increasing pressure, and obviously, as you say, if settlements continue to be tight, in effect forcing council tax to be higher than one would like, then that will no doubt continue to add pressure. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Stephen. So moving back to the vote, I assume that Councillor Michael, you still propose support, and do we have a seconder, please? Thank you very much. And finally, please can you open the electronic vote, please, because we need to vote electronically on this, please. Yep, that's unanimous. Thank you. Oh, sorry, can I ask for the vote to be closed, please? There we go. Thank you very much. And now we can move on to the second item under Yolo's collection of agenda items. But first of all, I think, and this is the panel performance assessment report and draft responses, pages 214 to 262. And I think, Amanda, you want to, would like to give an introduction on this one, please, before Yolo.
Yes, of course. Thank you. So as members will be aware, we, as other authorities in Wales, have been subject to a panel performance assessment that took place. Lost track actually at the tail end of last year and we had the draft report and final report earlier this year. You'll appreciate when you've seen the recommendations of the panel performance assessment that they are very broad in nature, and obviously we've got an initial action plan for consideration. And obviously there's further work to finesse and put the granular detail behind that in due course with the various different work streams. But I think the panel performance assessment was we very much valued the work that they did, and I know that's a feeling by Cabinet as well, and obviously keen to take on board their learning and move forward with the recommendations. So with that in mind, perhaps over to Yolo for some more detail. Thank you.
Thank you, Amanda. Not much more to add, really. As mentioned, we had the report, I think, beginning of February, and we've had a lot of conversations back and forth between SLT, SMT and Cabinet to develop the action plan as we have it. It was delayed being brought forward to committee because of the elections, but we're happy to have it actually alongside our self-assessment, because there's a great deal of synergy we feel between the actions that we've identified for the panel performance assessment and actions that we might deliver in support of, say, the stakeholder survey work that we've been doing. So in essence, it's been brought here to governance and audit because there is a statutory function here for this committee to pass comment upon the response that we've developed, and hereafter it's going onwards to Cabinet and full council eventually for approval. Thank you.
Nigel.
Thank you, Chair. I thought this was, again, quite an interesting read. I've got a comment firstly. I note that the Chair and Vice of the GAC were interviewed as part of the PPA process. I just wondered, firstly, whether there was any feedback, and congratulations, Michael, for your reappointment as Vice Chair, from Ian or yourself in relation to that particular aspect of the review before I go on.
Sorry. It was an interview that actually ran for much longer than we had anticipated. We met with, I think it was, yes, Fiona Lees. She was very receptive to our input. She asked some searching questions, actually, but at the end of the day, she summarised. I suppose you could say she was satisfied with what she was hearing from us in terms of governance. I don't think she showed any concern, certainly during the conversation that we had. But she had a range of areas of interest where she sought our input, and it wasn't challenging in the sense that it was aggressive or anything. It was simply like a conversation, and it reminded me actually of the audit interviews that we used to have years ago when I was actually working, where we always said it's a conversation, and we were looking for the little interesting bits that came out of that conversation. I think she's done the same thing. But no, there was not. We didn't express lots of concerns to her, but we did. Yeah, I think we gave her a good view of how this committee performed, how governance worked within the council, and she, I think, was aware that what we were saying was aligned with what she'd been hearing from other quarters as well. So she was using our interview as a bit of a confirmation as well. Did you want to add anything, Councillor Michael?
No, I suppose I'd just echo that. She was a skilled interviewer, as her background as a CEO of a former Scottish local authority. She had very few tells, but like Ian said, it was just a general conversation. It was very, very friendly, but she didn't give too much away. But we did come out of that meeting feeling it went well, and that we thought she heard everything that she wanted to a satisfactory level. So I suppose between me and Ian giving his lay member's perspective and me giving a elected member's perspective, was interesting to her as well, to give the two sides.
Oh, thank you, both of you. I mean, peer reviews can be very helpful if used constructively, and there are a couple of issues that sprung out to me from the report that was undertaken, which the PPA picked up. The first was a statement that the scrutiny processes need addressing. The second was that businesses were critical of the council in relation potentially to planning or other matters. And third, that town and community councils were a little critical about the level and nature of partnerships that were being undertaken. And there was an underlying issue, in my view, basically about pace and decision making when you read the report and reading potentially between the lines. So I looked at the action plan that had been prepared, and I just wonder whether, if you follow the logic of the argument that form follows function, whether a tighter review of the existing committee arrangements might have been undertaken in terms of a focus on what is currently being undertaken. If you look at the AGM that agreed the committees and the processes for this current financial year, there was no pickup on the PPA report in terms of recommendations. I understand there may have been some issues about timing of elections and stuff in terms of what came through, but a marker or a coat-hook in that might have had regard to some of the PPA comments about the need to review how and what committees are in action, or how decision-making processes are taking place, and whether there's resource and time and efficiency that was suggested could be saved if a refocus of some of that committee activity was undertaken, might have been included in the action plan. I certainly think in terms of pace of decision making, again, part of the PPA report was picking up on the convoluted systems that we currently have in place, not just on scrutiny but elsewhere, and that perhaps there's an opportunity for more radical pruning of that at the committee level that might help refocus or reduce the time work. And I just think that there's Every local government organisation will be plagued by its committee process, but I just think the PPA provides perhaps an opportunity to take a more radical review going forward. It's not an overnight process, but it might encourage that. The other element that I thought hidden within the report was a very clear recognition about senior resource capacity and what we pay our staff. And I think again that isn't about, just how many people have we got in relation to the roles we've got. It's also about the level of pay and marketability that we have for senior staff. Now I'm mindful that staff link into national pay awards and similar, pay awards and similar are considered by the Democracy and Boundary Commission, and therefore there are national negotiations that may take place out with that. But it is an area where I feel that if an issue has been highlighted, it needs a considered response, almost feeding into, it seems to be, a national position about what we do in terms of supporting staff at the right level. And particular issue was made of the senior resource capacity within the council. For us to succeed as an authority, we should avoid feeling that we get great value for money from our staff if we pay them less than other authorities. And that isn't really where we're at. We should be encouraging and seeking investment in staff. And tricky as it is politically, I certainly think there should be some positioning with regard to how pay awards nationally are influenced on the basis of evidence, and the PPA review is part of that evidence gathering process. So I think there's again an opportunity there to pick that up potentially as part of the COMWE response, but I'm sure that wherever the PPA process is undertaken across other authorities, similar themes may emerge, and our ability to collaborate on promoting that is something that we need to look at. So I think that there are areas where, as an authority, we could fine-tune potentially some of these recommendations in order to address those issues. And I certainly think that having no reference to committee structure as identified in terms of the concerns set out within the PPA report is a missed opportunity. I think we need at least to flag that, or provide some kind of co-talk that says, yes, we will look at form follows function, because that's effectively what the criticism is at the moment within the PPA report. To say nothing, I think, is a missed opportunity for the council. Those would be my comments at this point. Happy for officer or member feedback on those, Chair.
Thank you, Nigel. Amanda?
Perhaps if I can come in on some of those points, Nigel, and may others may well want to add something as well. Just in the context then of the some of those points that you've made. So in terms of scrutiny, I think and the committee structure. So I think there was a little bit of a I guess what I would perhaps class as a bit of an unfortunate timing overlap situation, in terms of the fact that we as an authority had anyway undertaken our own review of scrutiny and started to implement changes in relation to that at the time PPA came in. And I think there was a little bit of an overlap then, where in a sense what the PPA was recommending had already sort of been addressed through the scrutiny review, and we were in the middle of implementing those changes. So in that context, there have been over the last 12 months a number of changes, I think, that help in that whole area around, there's been review of delegations, there have been certain decisions taken, committee reports approving changes say to some of those delegations, which I think frees up the committee timetable. Obviously, on the back of council this year, there was an agreement to change the size of the committees to a standard committee size, which then will mean that we've not got a constant moving, chopping and changing of committee sizes as the political balances change and the group structures change. So that is also a positive step. So I think I absolutely understand what you're saying, and we've still got to see some of the effects of some of those things benefiting coming through, and I'm sure there's more to still do, and I'm sure the monitoring officer and others will be taking that into consideration, prior to the next administration. So that's on scrutiny. I'm less cited around planning and other matters in terms of how we're taking that forward, although obviously you'll be aware from the changes following the retirement of the previous head of planning and regulatory that planning has gone under a new head of service in Katie Clubb, and certainly I'm aware that she with the planning team, etc., has started to sort of look at how we can try and improve. And in fact, there was reference earlier to the recently appointed head of innovation and transformation, and he already has met with Katie to look at, are there things we can do to speed up the planning process, quick wins and that kind of stuff. So again, I think there's some renewed focus in that area, which will hopefully help in terms of that. Moving on to town and community councils, I know as well, further to the PPA, the leader has met with town and community councils, and I think we absolutely recognise as a council that we need to perhaps have a little bit of a reset around our sort of partnership working with town and community councils, and in fact, with that in mind, we are going to be arranging a meeting in early September, or in September anyway, to get that ball rolling around how can we move our relationship to be much more one of partnership, and for mutual benefit in terms of what we all want to deliver, and for the benefit of our residents, etc. So that's also on that one, and I guess in terms of your final point about capacity executive level, then I guess I'm probably not best one to comment on that one. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Amanda. Councillor Gareth, thank you for your patience.
No problem at all. Thanks ever so much. You said at the beginning, I think, Amanda, that it was fairly wide-ranging recommendations and that these assessments had been done across a number of local authorities. So I'd just like to focus in on a couple of what I think key areas. The first one is that the corporate resilience strategy, the implication seems to be that it's actually behind the curve with that, and that we need to accelerate it. There's an implication there that it isn't actually aligned with the medium-term plan and the people strategy. The second part of my observations are that our guidance and procedures aren't actually focused enough on outcomes, but we're too focused on following process and not actually pushing forward and looking at what are the outcomes. Are we doing this innovatively? Is there a different way we can do this? And the third really important part was that we don't seem to be focusing on our communities. So I just, and they're talking about that urgency of now that we need to move things forward at pace to sort these things out. So one, assurance that these things are being dealt with and are now going to be accelerated, but also is this just a common theme that we're seeing across all local authorities, or, are we being left behind a little bit here?
Thank you, Councillor Gareth. And again, I'm sure others may well want to comment as well as myself. So, first off, on that final point, whilst I haven't done a comprehensive trawl of all of the PPA results, certainly my anecdotal understanding from talking to a couple of other colleagues in other authorities and from feedback I know that Hreen has had, is that I think actually some of the themes that are coming out in our PPA are actually fairly common to the themes coming out at other authorities as well, no doubt with specific nuance. So I think they are in broad terms, similar. Moving to our points, the point specifically about us though. So yeah, I think my takeaway, and I guess it would be my own observation as well, I guess, in terms of our resilience strategy is clearly, we are in the earlier stages, I guess, of getting going with more pace with the work on our resilience strategy and the various different work streams that we have in there. And obviously, that came through democracy last year to approve that. And there certainly is a significant program of work being delivered through that resilience strategy, and obviously those updates will be coming through to democracy. However, and I think the point that the PPA was identifying is that whilst an awful lot of, whilst the various work streams and strands of projects that have been undertaken under the resilience strategy are no doubt worthwhile work to do, and are delivering or will deliver benefits in terms of efficiency and releasing capacity for people, what they're not necessarily doing is releasing cashable savings. And therefore that comes to the point about the medium-term financial plan and the alignment with the medium-term financial plan, because obviously I guess the more fundamental problem is that we know we have financial challenges of the future, but in terms of cashable reductions to our existing budget, then they're more difficult to find and obviously unanswered at the moment, or partially unanswered at the moment, and therefore still challenging. So that, I think that was the point they were picking up on, really, was that the alignment didn't identify that future program and timeline for those cashable savings. So that I think is still a challenge for us. There's no doubt. And I think to make the point there, I wouldn't want anyone to think therefore that's not because of lack of effort or endeavour. Absolutely not. Nor is it because the projects that are being pursued through the resilience strategy aren't absolutely worthwhile. But as is the case, in many authorities, we as an authority have been facing financial challenge for getting on for 15 years now, and our ability to keep year on year to keep finding more and more in terms of savings and efficiencies when we're delivering a wide range of statutory duties and have got increasing demand, inevitably is becoming increasingly and ever more difficult and challenging. So that's I guess the comment in terms of that. I think in terms of the guidance and procedures, I think we are absolutely, and again last year we looked, didn't we, at some of our program and project management framework and how we could streamline that and make sure that we weren't in a way getting bogged down by process and as you say rightly, concentrating on delivering. Working, ensuring we were delivering what we were trying to deliver and achieving the outcomes we were achieving, rather than merely, going through the motions and being bogged down by that bureaucracy. So I think again we are making progress in those areas, and again reference to the communities and working with communities. Again that I think is. Certainly in terms of turning community councils taking place, I know social care, for instance, there's an awful lot of work going on trying to work with communities as well. So I think everything is being worked on and clearly an attempt and a keenness to up the pace as set out, and the importance of now as set out in the PPA, but once again, and going back to the reference that Nigel made, clearly, there is no doubt we have capacity issues and capacity challenges, particularly at a strategic level to push forward with these things, and that will remain a challenge for us. But the the importance and the relevance of the urgency of now is not lost remotely. So I hope that helps.
Thank you, Amanda. Are you okay with that, Gareth, or are you, Councillor Gareth?
No, thanks ever so much for such a comprehensive explanation, Amanda. I suspect that the whole report hasn't actually told us anything we didn't know or didn't suspect. I suppose my fear is that, is it telling us that we're not as nimble and not as acting as urgently as some of our peers? And that's probably, something we need to keep an eye on whilst totally acknowledging the difficulty of the task. So thank you, Amanda.
Okay, thank you. Yolo, do you have?
Yes, just to add, to give members assurance as well, that there is work being done by the WLGA to look at the national trends that are coming out of these reports. All the panel performance assessments have only just been concluded, and I believe there's a Chief Executives working group that will be looking at these. And I know transformation is one of the big themes that's coming out across, unsurprisingly, and certainly, again, engagement work as well.
Thank you, Yolo. Gronwy, you've been extremely patient. Oh, we can't hear you.
Thank you. Can you hear me now?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. It's been very interesting listening to the discussion and debate. And quite a number of interesting topics have been raised. And I'm only well aware that, having been on the Cabinet for many years and now in a different role, that the services, and I was involved with the ERF as my last portfolio, the challenges that new legislation and guidance puts on already struggling departments that may well be under-resourced in the first place. I think of the new SABs and SUDs rules that have just come in will put an awful lot of work on local authorities as far as new developers, making sure that all developers comply with the new SABs and SUD rules. And that's an area where developers then feel that we are holding them back from developing because they have to comply with all these new rules with runoff of water from building sites and all these things. So it's important that we recognise this in good time when we are looking at our services, to make sure that we do proper resource those smaller outward-facing services that very often come under criticism. Now, I'm quite a rare person. I'm a county councillor, a town councillor, and a community councillor, and I attend 4 community councils in my ward as well. So I'm only well aware of the criticism that county comes under from our partners, which are town and community councils, because they feel that we don't listen and that we don't perform the way they would like to see us perform. And of course, as Amanda said, the savings we've had to make over the years means we do less as far as ERF, less with weed controls and sweeping and all these things, which is the things that our residents see and the things our community councils get more and more annoyed about. The fact that we've had to close a number of the toilets, and the fact that some community councils have stepped up and taken on some of these responsibilities, and they still see us putting up the rates. They put up their own rates as well. So it is this downward spiral of pressure on service delivery, when some of our larger services, the demand is growing and growing in both education and social services. So I think it's key to recognise that some of these officers dealing with the smaller services with reduced resources come under an awful lot of pressure and expectation. And I think you touched on it earlier, that perhaps the salaries that some of these posts attract or are allocated aren't high enough to retain some of those staff, to take into account the challenges and the pressure they come under. And I know it's been difficult recruiting in ERF and in some of the other services, because and such as planning and regulatory, because they can get far more salaries elsewhere and maybe less public pressure on those roles. So I think we do need to be mindful that we keep the salary scales at the right level to attract people and retain people in those more challenging roles. We recently won an award for CCTV cameras, which was fantastic. A lot of money, a lot of new cameras. All the public think that cameras are very effective in health and safety and in making people feel safe. but then you need the resources to make sure that you can actually deliver that service. And that's sometimes where we fail to recognise that we need to put the resources in there. And of course, as Amanda said, it's challenging to put extra resources in when our settlements seem to be more challenging year by year. But I think, yes, we need to be mindful of the fact that we are seen by much of our residents as increasing taxes whilst not improving services. So it's something we need to be very mindful of and address wherever we can. So just a few comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Gronwy. Nigel, did you want to...
Chair, I was going to make two recommendations in relation to the proposed action plan. If I go through those recommendations on page 250 and 251, item 12, which is headed Review Reporting Timetables. Members may recall at the last meeting of the GAC, there was discussion about the annual governance statement. And within that discussion, there was a recommendation from GAC through to Cabinet that we should look at a number of issues there, one of which was the period of time for advanced work programmes, and we picked up that Cabinet was referenced as a 4-month rolling programme. Now, I think that from where I'm sitting and looking across other committees, that recommendation 12 might usefully be extended to include a rolling 12-month cycle work programme, which allows Cabinet to lead with purpose and control the activities of the authority seems to me in a more overt way, because I don't think the current information suggests that isn't a 12-month process, and I think there's some benefit in moving to a rolling 12-month purpose. So a formal wording of extension of 12 would meet that expectation. My second comment would be on recommendation 13. Given my previous comments this morning, that we consider senior resource capacity and remuneration levels linked into and informing national negotiations. And that is, again, the wording of that might be tweaked, but that's essentially to recognise this isn't just a capacity issue. This is a retention and recruitment issue having regard to market conditions, and I think therefore it needs to be specifically set out there, not just as a capacity matter. So an extension of that recommendation 13 in order to meet that objective would be my aspiration. Those are the 2 points that I would raise formally this morning, Chair. Happy for officers to confirm or clarify wording in relation to that, Chair, if they feel a better form of words would apply.
Yeah, thank you, Nigel. Philip, I'll get to you, Councillor Paul.
Thank you, Chair. On page 230, there's a paragraph that initially I've found quite contradictory. It's suggesting that annual self-assessment should be annual self-assessment, whereas I think we seem to do it every 6 months. But at the same time, they're asking that members get more quicker information on performance. And I wondered if that was something that the performance staff like y'all have thought about, and whether that would help in as Nigel's pointing out about decision-making speed. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Philip. Yolo?
Thank you for that. So there are a few pieces of legislation that sit behind our self-assessment approach as it is at the moment, and that sort of has dictated the approach that we take with the reports that we have. We've done a lot of work to streamline performance information into that single report. What previously were separate reports that came to this committee and others, all the answers now lie within the self-assessment. And I think it's wrong to look at our self-assessment reports as being annual in type. Well, they are annual, but they're also not. We do it in 6 monthly blocks. So it's not that we're producing 2 self-assessment reports twice a year. At the end of the year, we produce a single kind of summary of the 2 6-monthly block reports that we produce. So actually, there's no saving in terms of time, because you'd still need to spend that time either way analysing each 6-month block. There is a debate about whether an authority is better off being 6 monthly reporting or quarterly reporting. I think there are pluses and minuses. I've seen it work both ways, and you have to bear in mind the available staff capacity and burden that would come with quarterly reporting. So there's pluses and minuses either way. From my perspective, I'm very pleased, obviously, with how the self-assessment process is currently working here, and I hope members also have seen that improvement in terms of the quality of the information that we're bringing forward.
Thank you, Yola. Philip, okay.
Yes, Chair, thanks. Thank you, Yola.
Councillor Paul.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to build a bit on some of the comments that Nigel and Gareth raised in relation particularly to the draft management response. A bit surprised the Chief Exec isn't here today. And I'm also think that this draft management response, I'm sure if the Chief Exec was here, we'd be talking about Team Conwy. But it feels a bit self-regarding and self-congratulatory, actually. And it doesn't, to me, from a governance point of view, offer much transformational change. I think we're all clear. We've sort of muddled through the last 4 years, and as Stephen had said earlier, without additional allocations from Welsh Government, and we've muddled through basically by significantly raising council tax each year. But I suspect, this being an election year, that option will be even more limited come this next budget. And we saw some of those challenges that Chris had here within his own administration with this year's budget. So it seems to me that moving on from this draft management response, we are going to need some transformational change. Now then, how much transformational change can take place in the period leading up to the next elections, I don't know. But it seems to me there is an inevitability that there are going to have to be very significant changes going forward, because as Stephen said, we've got a new Welsh Government, but I don't see any indication that we're suddenly going to get massive allocations of taxpayers' money to Conwy. So in those circumstances, as I say, I find this draft management response disappointing and not radical enough to address the issues we're dealing with. And it seems to me, because of the statutory duty, and we've got colleagues from social services here, though that increase in demand for social care, because particularly in the rise in the older population, but also the complexity of demand now, particularly from children and adults in terms of their needs, without radical change, are we going to be able to muddle through? And I suspect there isn't going to be a big council tax increase this year, because I just don't think members will support it in an election year.
Thank you, Councillor Paul.
No response.
Can I ask a response to what?
Well, that analysis. Why is it not a more radical management response to the panel performance assessment report? That's my question.
And by radical, you...
Transformational change. All I've been hearing about over the last couple of years is that we're going to go through transformational change. I'm not experiencing it. I'm not seeing it. And I definitely know my residents' feedback to me, they're not seeing it. They're not seeing it.
Okay. Amanda, do you have... is there any response you would wish to make to that? Because my perception of reading the report is that the words that are used are well intentioned. There is clearly an interest in transformation. You can question or not, but I think there is now a report in place with actions and visible commitment to make positive steps forward. And some of those steps are already being taken. And I would anticipate that the Governance and Audit Committee in due course will have the opportunity to be updated on progress that's being made. Councillor Stephen.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I think Councillor Paul has given an opinion which probably needs a political response, and this is a regulatory committee, so it would be inappropriate to give a response at this time. Thank you.
Okay. So nothing more to add.
I mean, I mean, I think at the end of the day, you know, I don't think there's any doubt that, you know, we recognise, and we've been discussing it for years, and I guess the point made by whoever, apologies, I can't recall for the minute, that in a way the PPA hasn't told us stuff we didn't know already. I mean, clearly, you know, in terms of our financial pressures and our financial challenges, you know, in the absence of removing further services, which is limited anyway because of statutory responsibilities, you know, clearly we have to work out how we transform to the extent we use every pound we use to best effect. But you know, and clearly we're all collectively trying to do that. But I do go back ultimately, yes, in fairness to Councillor Stephen, you know, it is the politicians that are leading this organisation, so you know, it is a political response.
Okay, thank you, Amanda. Oh, YOLO.
Sorry, just I also wanted to noted for the minutes that the Chief Executive did send his apologies today, and hence asked Amanda to step in.
Thank you, YOLO. So we have two firm suggestions from Nigel around action. It's on page 250 and 251, which is the around the reporting timetables and the senior resource capacity. And perhaps we can take exact wording sort of offline rather than unless you really want to craft the wording for the minutes now.
If the committee's happy, if the committee wants to support Nigel's recommendation, then I would ask if we could take that offline, because I just seek some clarification on the specific points.
Yeah. Okay. So minute your suggestions, and then we'll work it offline.
Yeah, Chair, can we just check that my colleagues on GAC are supportive of the thrust of those minutes, of those recommendations, please, Chair?
Yes, well, yes. Councillor Gareth. Oh,
I was just going to say I'm happy to second Nigel's recommendations.
Yeah. Okay. Good discussion. So I think it's now time to move to a vote, and first of all, I need to ask for a proposer in support of the recommendation, which was to review the draft responses and offer any recommendations for change, which is what we're doing through Nigel's two suggestions. So do I have a proposer, please? Thank you, Councillor Liz. And a seconder? Philip, thank you. And please, can we open the electronic vote now? And I'll ask members to vote, please. Yep. Okay. Thank you very much. That is... Oh, I keep forgetting to ask them to close the vote. Please, can you close the vote? There we go. Yep. So that's unanimous. So thank you very much. And now we can move on to item 10 on the agenda, which again is over to you, Yolo, and it's the Corporate Risk Register.
Thank you, Chair. I'll keep it brief. I just want to give thanks to Janice Martin for her support with this report. Janice does a great deal of work in the background to coordinate all the responses and chase up action updates. So this report presents the updates to our latest review of the Corporate Risk Register, having had input from service managers and oversight by risk owners at SLT. I think this is the third report now using this template, but actually I was reflecting before this meeting that even though we bring it to committees at a set point in time, what I'm seeing is actually this is not a singular event. I am seeing officers using this as an iterative process. So there have been updates from the very moment that it came to committee last time, really. And I'm already aware of future updates as well that need to be worked in. So with this review overall, I would say that our risk profile is largely static. We've made minor updates to risk descriptions and the controls just to make sure that they are still current, but there's no change in our risk score with this update. The risk summary at the front of the report, page 272 of your pack, that includes a trend analysis column. I just wanted to warn members that that's not a reflection of the risk score. That is an assessment made by the risk owner as to where they feel things are at now, reflecting on the last 6 months. So it's a little bit more responsive. Other than that, I'm happy to take questions, Chair.
Thank you, Yolo. Does anyone have any observations or questions? Nigel.
Thank you, Chair. Me again.
Yes.
Again, this is a really useful report, and it's getting better every time, Yolo. Which allows us, I think, to look slightly outside the box on how we deal with risk across the authority. If you go through the allocations in terms of where risk sits across Cabinet and across SLT, there's about 7 councillors involved and 3, 4, 5 officers involved. What I sense we might aspire to try and achieve now is to look at seriously having risk inform the policy decisions of the authority. And I see there are 2 ways of doing this. At the moment, we are still potentially a reactive to how we consider risk, and I'm looking that we move to being a more proactive authority in terms of how we use and apply risk in our judgments and our consideration. So the two ways that I was thinking of, the first was that in reporting we risk proof reports, and the way that we might sort of proof having regard to particular elements of legislation and as a discipline in terms of officer reporting and preparation of reports, there is specifically some kind of code hook that picks up a risk element. It's a fairly simple technical device, but it is intended to try and prompt the officers who intend to be 99% of the cases drafting the report. And that's not you, Yolo, it's wherever, elsewhere within the organisation, because although, Yolo, you are probably steeped in risk, you may find a width of quality of how deeply steeped in risk others are across the authority. So that was the first technical device. The second, I thought, would be that instead of being accountable, that the identified names on the risk register become more of a risk champion. And that therefore you expect those lead members to be ensuring a positive contribution, wearing that hat of risk champion for those particular risks in terms of the particular area of activity that their responsibility falls. So that it becomes an active rather than a passive role. And because I sense still at the moment it's only applies when you come to do and update the risk register, whereas I'm trying to look at a situation whereby the authority becomes, as I say, more proactive in terms of how they use risk in a positive way across the organisation rather than reactive. So I'd value some comments back from officers on that, and whether if we've got cabinet members here that they might have a view about being risk champions. Chair, thank you.
Thank you, Nigel.
Thank you, Nigel. I think your suggestion around how we link decisions to corporate risks is a good one. Obviously, at the moment, members will know the committee template has a little box there that says what are the risks of this particular decision. But that is very much related to the decision. It's not a reflection on corporate risk. So there could be something there that we could work with committees when they develop the next report template to include within that a reflection on corporate risks. In terms of risk champions, I think that was very much my intention, because when I introduced the current template and the field that clearly identifies risk owners, I've been very clear that the risk owners must sit at an SLT and cabinet level. They are ultimately the responsible owners for the register. So I certainly, in my mind, automatically think of our risk owners as risk champions. It's a pedantic point maybe that we could change that word from owners to champions, but I don't know if cabinet members want to have a view on that either.
Yeah, can I just come in? I think we're all responsible collectively for the risks, and I think to highlight one individual as responsible for a particular risk potentially sets a dangerous precedent. I'm not fully supportive of it, but I think there could be some work towards potentially doing it, but as it stands, no.
Thank you for that, Nigel. Yeah, if I could go to risk 2 on page 278. So a few years ago, council determined that we would become carbon zero. Really good. The fact that we want to be carbon zero by 2030. But since then, we've got the likes of Welsh Government saying that now also part of that plan, you need all your suppliers to be in that. And basically, if you look at our performance, we as a council, we've been doing really well, or doing okay with the resources that we have. However, then when you put in our suppliers, we've gone up. So I find that really difficult. I find it really difficult indeed. And then what am I going to say to the people of Conway? And what will their reaction be that if I said we're not going to make carbon zero by 2030, are they going to come running after me or whatever? I don't know. So I think we have to be realistic as well, and that's a conversation that I am having, and it's something that I may need to share politically.
Thank you, Councillor Mack. Councillor Gareth.
Thank you. Just a question about the first risk on there, which is worsened, and is the insufficient funding will prevent us from balancing our books. Is there any weighting given in that, or taking into consideration a couple of points that we've already covered? Is there any weighting given in that assessment as to the ability of residents to actually pay the council tax? Because that's always the balancing item between the income we receive from central government and our costs. And is there any weighting given to it, given to the political appetite to either control costs or increase council tax to bridge the gap?
Sorry. Apologies. Sorry, I was just laughing because Yolo's staring at me. He's going, "What are you doing?" Yes. Yes. I mean, obviously, I think, as you say, I think in terms of the risk rating, funnily enough, we had quite some debate about this in one sense, because, you know, I guess. I guess the problem is that, you know, what we get as external funding is ultimately outside of our control, notwithstanding, you know, lobbying, etc. And therefore, I think that's in the end why we were leaving it as a sort of a or we've reflected it in the way we have, because that we can't do anything about that, and clearly the landscape isn't getting any easier. But yes, in terms of our own decisions, then inevitably, you know, that whole, you know, you can obviously mathematically, can't you, solve the problem by, as you say, referring to council tax as a balancing figure, because essentially if you've got pressures, less external funding equals the gap, you know, and you say, well, council tax is the gap. But clearly, you know, that regard, as you say, Councillor Gareth, to people's ability to pay is very pertinent and relevant to it, because you can raise debt all you want on paper, but if you can't get the cash through the door, then you're you know no better off in reality, are you? I whilst perhaps not given a weighting in a documented judgment way, certainly I think in that balance and consideration of you as members, when we have those debates around what might be a reasonable council tax increase in light of the pressures, etc. You know, I think that very point about how much, you know, at what point does it become uncollectible, or at what point does an insufficient amount become uncollectible, clearly is a very relevant point in that debate. And I certainly think I certainly think, you know, there were discussions as part of in Frosc and Cabinet, you know, that touched on that in setting last year's budget, and I think it'll certainly become a more increasing element of the debate, particularly as we see council tax collection, you know, slightly deteriorate further, as it were. So sorry, I've rambled a bit in terms of my answer. I appreciate. So to be succinct, not weighted in a way that I've written down a judgment about how we consider it, but yes, absolutely, it plays into the consideration.
Councillor Gronwy? Sorry, we can't hear you again.
You need to press your push to speak, Councillor Gronwy.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Yes.
I pressed so many buttons. Okay, right. One thing that we do need to be mindful of talking about risk, one, I think that coming down the road, that is, because about knowing the risk and the unknown risk, is the fact that we're now out to consultation on the tourism tax. Now, I've been to quite a few of the meetings and I've discussed it in our various community councils and town councils, that should we decide in September, I think the report's coming to us in September, on the consultation, and we will have to take a decision then on whether we impose a tourism tax. And a lot of the concern that I've seen is if we go ahead and introduce the council tax, we think we'll be have £2 or £3 million possibly to spend on the public realm and things that the people feel are important. The risk that I think I've heard from community councils is that, well, if they're going to get this money from tourism tax, why should we bother contributing towards keeping the toilets, the things that we do pay for towards now? So I think when that report is produced, I think the cabinet members producing that report need to make sure that the risks of the collection of tourism tax, if we go ahead, what impact will that have on the settlements we currently have from the Welsh Government? Will they say, right, they're getting some money in there, so we'll give them less? So these are the types of things we need to identify early before we take decisions. So I think I would severely ask the request of the cabinet members introducing the report on the officers identify all the possible risks and benefits that may come from introducing the tourism tax.
Yeah, just to say thank you for those observations, Councillor Gronwy. I think absolutely, as you say, in terms of the visitor levy, we need to be alert to those issues, and certainly I am aware that within the formula of the local government settlement, there is something called the enhanced population grant, which is reflective of tourism numbers. So obviously, where I appreciate there is an argument or one fear, for want of a better word, of introducing a visitor levy might be that it would impact negatively on tourism numbers, and therefore if as part of our settlement we're getting recognition for tourism numbers, then obviously if they were to fall away, then that might have that negative impact. So I guess the point being is I'm equally keen, as you say, for us to seek to tease out all of the risks, potential risks that we can identify. At the end of the day, it's clearly a very complex argument. There are strong advocates, both pro and against the visitor levy, and what I want to ensure from an officer point of view, and obviously in supporting the portfolio holder bringing the report forward, is that we are allowing you as members to make the most informed decision you can, recognising all of the different factors, arguments and risks, as you say. So certainly we will be looking to capture those as best we can. Thank you.
Thank you, Amanda. Thank you.
Councillor Chris.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. And I always like it when cabinet members are put on the spot in governance and audit. But yes, I don't mind what you call me, really. Yes, I am a champion for financial resilience and sound financial management in the council. Just to comment on going back to the previous item when Nigel mentioned engagement with our communities and everything, I think this council is very strong in that. We are doing a very thorough consultation on the visitor levy at the moment, and we did a very prolonged consultation on the replacement local development plan in January and February. That was statutory 6 weeks. We actually extended it to 10 weeks. So we are very thorough in going out to consultation and that sort of engagement. Yes, not only about council tax, is it? How we raise our money. I'm going to a meeting tomorrow morning on the school strategic planning group, and we'll be looking at the whole of our school finances and trying to going towards reforming the school funding formula, looking at the school estate, looking at the pressures of ALN provision and the cost that is, home to school transport, all that sort of thing. This is all part of our financial viability, and that's just to give you one example of a lot of work that is going on, and I can give this committee that assurance that we are at full belt with that. We're not resting on our laurels, Paul, at all. A lot of work is going on, and in the next few months we'll hopefully see the initial results of that. So just to give you that reassurance, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Chris. Councillor Austin.
Diolch yn fawr. Dim ond eisiau ymddehiro, mae rhaid I mi'r ardal rwan, mae gennau gyfarfod yn Llanws am 1:00. Did you get that? Diolch yn fawr.
Thank you. I don't think these headphones are working very well. Councillor Paul.
Yes, Chair. Just on to build really on the point that Nigel and others raised about the allocation of risk to both professionals and cabinet portfolio holders. In a sense, we all know that is the reality, because if we had a Nigel Foden situation in Conway, I think we would expect, both professionally and politically, people would go, as they did in Gwynedd. I mean, I think if that isn't the case, we have the situation, I'm not going to do anything before somebody jumps up, with the Mocktra shed, for example, because at the time, nobody took responsibility. And that means it's an ongoing blight on this council. So in a sense, when things go wrong, and they sometimes do go wrong, I think we do need to be clear about where that responsibility lies, and whether politically, if I was ever in that situation, I'd know clearly that I'd have to go. And I think professionally also, because what it will have shown is that there wasn't sufficient political curiosity about that risk or professional curiosity about that risk. And that's the key issue about having a risk register. It should make us all politically curious and professionally curious. And then hopefully those risks won't become an outcome.
Thank you, Councillor Paul. I only had one question, and it's my unfortunately it's my old favourite, because I guess I keep raising it because I never get the answer that I want, which is on risk one. The risk that insufficient funding will prevent us from balancing the budget, and unfortunately Amanda's not here. And I still sincerely believe that we do ourselves as a council actually a disservice by saying that assessment of controls around an economic and financial risk is limited assurance, when there is significant assurance around how finances are managed. And I think there's there may well be low assurance around gaining more funding from Welsh Government, but that is a completely different matter from the controls around the management of this council in matters financial. But Amanda has escaped temporarily. YOLO.
I'm happy to give the same response that I've previously given to you, Chair, on this, but the assessment of controls is ultimately a judgment as to whether or not the controls can meet the risk. Now, grateful for your comments that you feel that the controls we've put in place are good and strong. However, the feeling of the risk owner, Amanda, as Section 151, is that the external environment is currently outpacing our control. So those controls are not sufficient, no matter how good they are, they're not sufficient to weather a war in Iran, for example, or less money from Welsh Government. It has to take into account all the external threats, inflationary pressures, unstable world economies, and that's the reasoning behind the judgment.
In which case, our assessment of the level or quality of assurance around this area will always be low. COVID, Iran, Iraq, President Trump, it's constant, and that cannot be cannot possibly be correct in terms of saying how do our day-to-day controls operate here. It's different perspective altogether. But anyway, I've made my point. I know it's always going to be assessed as low, and I personally think it's not correct. But okay, there's no more support coming from around the chamber, so we should probably now move to a vote, which will be an electronic vote. But firstly, please can I ask for a proposer in support of the Councillor Stephen? Thank you very much. And a seconder, Councillor Michael. And please can you open the vote, and can I ask you to vote electronically, please? I think, but please can you close the vote? Well, Councillor Austin's gone. So that is unanimous. Thank you very much. And now we're moving on to the final item on the agenda, number 11. I'm sorry to say, Yolo, it's you again. This is the consideration of the external reports.
Thank you, Chair.
Two.
Thank you, Chair. And with this, I can say good afternoon, members. This is going to be the briefest of my presentations. This is a routine report that we bring to the Governance and Audit Committee to explain the latest external regulatory reports that we've received as an authority. It is our process that all external regulatory reports go to scrutiny before they're presented to Governance and Audit Committee, but we've got a little bit of a change here. The two reports being presented, the National Fraud Initiative, this is just an update report for the Governance and Audit Committee, so it's not been to scrutiny beforehand. And the Are We Caring for Our Carers report, this actually went to the Conwy Carers Strategic Group to receive scrutiny, so just to make members aware of that. But otherwise, I know Charles Rigby is on the call. If you have any questions on the Audit Wales report specifically, I'm happy to take questions.
Okay. Thank you, Yolo. David.
Thank you, Chair. Page 350, the NFI matches for Conway. Do we have any idea of the level of savings Conway achieved from, have you done the investigations into that year yet?
No, I don't think we do.
When's that likely to be?
I think the report comes out in September. We might have some idea then. Thank you.
Thank you.
Nigel.
Thank you, Chair. A couple of questions potentially for Audit Wales. The first one is on page 342, Charles, it talks about liaison with the North Wales Corporate Joint Committee. Just some clarification from you as to what data matching might conceivably involve the North Wales CJC. And the second question for you is on page 344, Welsh participant data matches. There are clearly a whole list of data match areas there which come down to an individual. What is the section defined as procurement? Thank you.
Thank you, Nigel. Charles.
Thanks, Chair. So I will have to, as I wasn't directly involved in the NFI work, it's the responsibility of our investigative studies team. I will have to, rather than fudge an answer for Nigel, I will seek some clarification and contact officers with the answer, Chair.
Can I just check, Chair, is that in
That's
respect
okay.
to both items, Charles?
Yeah, both in respect to the CJC and the procurement definition. Just in terms of the data with the CJC, generally speaking, that would be whether there are any direct employees, etc. Obviously, appreciating whatever the SLA arrangements for the CJC in respect. But I will confirm through writing the details of both.
Okay, thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Charles. Do we have any more questions or comments for Yulo and Charles? No? Okay, so this is once again an electronic vote, and please can I ask for a proposer in support of this report from Yulo? Councillor Stephen, thank you. And a seconder, Councillor Michael, thank you. And can we open the electronic vote now, please? And please can I ask committee members to vote? Yeah. Please can you close the vote now? Once again, it's unanimous. So thank you very much for that. Thank you, Yulo. And yeah, thank you everyone for your questions and patience. And we'll be back again in September, I think it is. So have a good rest of the day.